in StarCraft, some of your guys wear armor and some of them don't. For example, this guy obviously wears armor, whereas this little dude obviously doesn't. So you can see a Marauder is armored, as noted down there, and a Marine is considered light because he doesn't have armor. Now this matters because something like a siege tank has a different attack value depending on which guy he attacks. So if his regular damage is 21, so if he attacks the Marine, he'll do 21 damage. And his versus armored damage is 34. So if he attacks the Marauder, he'll do 34. So I can go attack, attack, and you can see that he lost 21 health, and he lost 33 health. It would have been 34, but he has 1 armor. So let's see how the visitor pattern can help us solve this problem of the same bullet or projectile doing a different amount of damage based on the type of guy that you hit. Our demo is going to start out looking like this. The green squares are armored units, and the red circles are light units. And I have a gun that kind of shoots from the middle, and if I click on one of the units, it'll send a bullet to it. So, I can click on any of the armored, click on a light, and this is their, their current health over their total health. So right now, none of these guys are actually receiving damage because we haven't implemented the logic to control how much damage a bullet will do based on whether he's armored or whether he is light. So basically, I just create a bunch of light and armored guys and place them in random spots on the stage. And then when you click on him, I do some, gratuitous tweening just for the fun of it. I could actually just do hit logic in here, but instead I do some tweening just to make it look nicer. And then once that tween is done, it forwards it onto this on infantry hit, where I have an instance of the dude who got hit and the bullet that hit him. So if you look in, for example, like the armored, it's just, the green square with some hit points, and that text field with hit points over max hit points. Same thing with the light, the red circle with some hit points and the text field. And we also have the bullet, which right now is just a tiny black square. So what we're going to do here to build this functionality is using the visitor pattern. We'll just kind of jump right in, and then I'll explain it as I go along. So if we take our infantry dude, and we create a new method called accept bullet. Now, accept may be kind of a funny word for a bullet, but you can kind of think of it like someone shot a bullet at you and you're accepting it in your chest, but it's the common method naming scheme for using the visitor pattern, and I'll show how it'll be more flexible later. But for right now, just imagine you're accepting a bullet. So within our infantry interface, we're just going to say that you can accept this siege tank bullet. So we have to go back to our light guy and implement the accept method. We'll hop on down to accept. So when he accepts the bullet, we're going to say bullet visit light, and we'll pass in this. Now, this is called a double dispatch because you're telling the guy to accept, and then once he accepts, going right back to the bullet and telling the bullet to act on himself. So double dispatching, the guy accepts, then he tells the bullet to act on himself. So once we visit a light, we're using the word visit because it's a visitor pattern. We could just say hit light or whatever. But since we're visiting him, we'll say light hit points minus equal 21, because a siege tank bullet will do 21 damage to a light unit. And then if we hop over to the armored unit, and we jump up and implement the accept method. We can say bullet visit. Instead of visit light, this time we're going to say visit armored and pass in this. Again, doing the double dispatch. And we'll create the method visit armored on the bullet. So on the armored guy, we can say hit points minus equal 34. Now at this point, we've given the responsibility to causing damage to the bullet. But in the line of thinking, saying the bullet hit the the light or the armored guy, and based on whether he's light or armored, do this specific amount of damage to him by checking back at the bullet what type of damage he should do. So if we run the demo now, you can see that once the bullet collides, it does 34 damage, then it'll do 21 damage, and everything works just like we wanted. We're doing a specific amount of damage based on the type of guy that we hit and also based on the type of bullet that we use. Now, to make this much more flexible, the visitor pattern isn't only about matching these two types and doing a specific damage based on the type. It also allows for many other things. For example, if I go into the siege tank bullet and I extract the interface here, so instead of having visit light and visit armored only in the siege tank bullet, we'll pull this out. So we'll just call this I visitor, and we'll make it so that it extracts and uses this interface wherever possible, and we'll pull out visit light and visit armored so that they can be reused or re-implemented in other classes. So we have our I visitor, visit light, visit armored. Now any type of visitor object we want to create can go into this, go into the light unit and the armored unit and do whatever it wants with it. So a simple example we can do would be to, we'll create a new class in here. So visitor will be, let's do something like stats visitor. And we'll say our stats visitor, let me minimize that, implements I visitor, and we'll implement visit light and visit armored. And we'll say, let's say stats will pull out all of the stats of every unit that that we visit and see what the totals are. So we can do something like public var group max hit points and start out at 0, and group current hit points or group hit points and start that out at 0. So anytime we visit a light, we'll go group max hit points plus equals the light max hit points, and group hit points plus equal light hit points. And we can do pretty much the same thing on the armored. And then once we're done collecting these, we'll print out the results. And just say trace total group hit points over group max hit points. And this will show us the total hit points of everything within the entire group. To implement this, we'll simply just go back into our visitor pattern demo and say whenever you hit the enter key, we'll create this stats visitor. We'll loop through each of the units in the infantry, and these guys will be I infantries, and we'll call them infantry dudes. And we'll say infantry dude, accept stats visitor. And once that's all done, we can just say stats visitor dot print. So the beauty here is, while I can just use this accept method to accept the stats visitor, I could also use it to accept a bullet. Basically, I can use it with any object that implements the I visitor, anything that has a visit light and a visit armored. So if we look back and run this now, whenever I hit the enter key, so if I hit the enter key now, you'll see in the trace, it's 1700 out of 1700. If I shoot a few guys, you'll see that's gone down to 1500 out of 1700. Shoot a few more guys. And scroll down. See, it's 1454 out of 1700. So, this visitor can go through every single object and collect from them. Another simple thing we could do is, if we wanted to do something like a splash damage where that siege tank bullet hit everybody, because it's just that powerful. If we just did that siege tank bullet, and then we'll loop through all the dudes again, and infantry, infantry dude, so infantry dude, accept bullet, whoops, not bullet, this one is siege tank bullet. And this time around, the siege tank bullet is hitting everybody whenever I hit the space key. So if we run this now, I can, click around, still do the 34 damage, and 21 damage, and 34 damage. But if I hit the space bar, it'll go through and do the 34 damage or 21 damage, depending on which type of unit it hits, and it'll take down everybody within the list. And then, I can run my report by hitting space and see that we're down to 511 out of 1700. And do some more splash damage. Now we're down to negative 39. Obviously they should die at 0, but whatever. So the visitor pattern in a nutshell is using the double dispatch, where you say accept, and then once you accept it, you forward that accept call. So for example, in light, back on to the object that accepts and say visit this specific instance. And once it's visiting, it'll implement whatever it should do when it visits. A bullet will do its damage. A stats report or stats visitor will gather some stats. You could have it do pretty much anything you wanted to these different infantry units or these different visitable objects or acceptors. So the visitor pattern and these visitor objects really allow you to add this, these additional operations to your, light infantry, armored infantry, anything that wants to be visited without really touching the light and armored classes. You just have to give it a chance to accept a visitor object, and that, all these different types of visitor objects can go in and do whatever they want. Now, this may seem a little bit dirty or whatever, because you're letting these external classes, these external visitor objects, act on the data or grab data from your concrete, light, and armored classes. But the flexibility it gives you by letting these objects, go through any sort of different type of object that it allows to be accepted, these don't have to be two infantry objects. They can be whatever they want, as long as they have that accept an I visitor. and you can implement whatever you want within these, visit light, visit armored. You could do visit moon, and because, they have the concrete types in there, they can grab whatever data they want and then, print out reports. That's the visitor pattern in a nutshell, and I hope you liked it.